this.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty important.
Well, Doug O'Brien still teaches too, so it's like,
Oh yeah, but I said not many. Like you could probably count in your hand how many people go over sleight of hand.
I'm
So,
not a king of it either. I know some of it.
wow. Just introducing these ideas to people is like mind blowing. And I use it all the time. What's going on, guys? We are live on the YouTube channel. Boom.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm live. I'm live. Hey, it's one good thing it is. It's holiday season. Da da dun dun da 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 dun da da
So
da.
crazy. I typed in why sleight of, and then it didn't put mouth in there. I'll have to go back in there later. Why sleight of mouth is important.
Uh,
That's what happens when you have too much caffeine and you work fast,
right. I,
missing those
I think
details.
I think why any language patterns are they're not necessarily, but they do help people
You might want to
communicate
move the screen
better.
over.
Oh, sorry about that, guys.
Like, what are you looking at? Who are you looking at?
I'm looking at myself. I'm so beautiful. I'm looking at myself. No, anyway, language patterns in sleight of mouth and helping people to help other people to understand what you're trying to get across, and also help persuade people to do what's right and in a kindly manner in winning conversations.
So basically, sleight of mouth, a little bit of history. We have like Jeff and I, we have a whole program on the website that I posted that'll go over all the different details of what sleight of mouth is and why it's important. But, just a brief history. Robert Dilts was studying Richard Bandler. Richard Bandler was one of the founders of NLP, neuro linguistic programming. And what he found was that you can take any belief structure and flip it 16 different ways. And that's just like a foundation. And 16 is just like a starting point. Like it's as many as your mind can come up with. But once you're shown the way and shown the framework and what it actually means, um, it was one of the most powerful things to me anyway. Because I'm auditory, I run sleight of mouth patterns on any belief structure or anything basically that comes up to me and it's something I got to solve. And we all know it's open loop city when you're running a business. Is this person going to do this? Is this person going to do this? I said this. What does that person, what does all that mean? So basically, I run I don't know. Well, because there's 16 patterns, you don't need to use them all. It's just the ones that your mind kind of gravitates to, or what ones that you find that works best for you. So it probably runs 4 or 5 different language patterns in 20 different directions. And then once it's come up with the end, right? What's the end result from this one avenue? It just puts a bow on it and it's like, well, does this work for you or not work for you? And well, it might be a little confusing the way I'm explaining it right now, but once again, sleight of mouth, it's framework, and we will show you a picture here in a second and then go over a little bit of it for you. And yet, when something's presented to you, you want to question it, right? Is it real? Is it not real? Does it bother me if it's real or not real? Does it matter? And then you can begin to trailblaze a path that works best out for you. And, this is something once you're shown or once your mind grabs onto it, it's like you want to learn more. Like, which ways can this go? Jeff, how do you use sleight of mouth?
I don't use it as much as I probably could. Study with Doug O'Brien on it. He gave us permission to share it with the world, and I use it mostly on just basically showing them what they have and then where you want to go with it, and basically without really wanting to argue with anybody. I like some of the patterns, like, isn't it better to do this than this? Wouldn't it be better if if we both came out with a good outcome, then you just win, because a win-win situation is where I want to go with most kinds of conversations. Then also knocking down a belief, or chunking down or chunking up, but breaking a belief they have that this is the only way to look at it, because you're giving them other options to look at it, and there's so many different ways, and then you can pull it back and bring it to somebody else, put it on somebody else. These guys said this, and so why do you come up with that? And uh, also, a really good thing I really liked from one of Doug's classes was using and instead of but, you know,
Oh yeah.
because a but is rebuttal, and it's not always, you know, you can use a but when you need to, but and it's not always to get your way. It's also say, yes, you're right. And, you know,
So an example of using the word but is if you wanted to get an idea across, yet you're slipping past the the fighting mind, the critical fact, right? You want to slip past the critical factor into the subconscious versus the conscious mind. When he started talking about the word but, one of these language patterns just hopped into my mind. So there was a language pattern. I don't know if I saw it on YouTube recently or maybe a year ago. Anyway, it's what I bring up every time, we explain the word but. Politicians use this, right? So I can't remember which politician it was, and the person said, "I know you're not a racist, but," and then went on with whatever. You're probably doing the best that you can. So it was like slipping past an insult. It got it into the mind and out in the public. So you had that to think about that. And then anything you say after that doesn't really matter. But you still got, see, but you still got that across.
that's almost with a don't too, you know.
Yep.
I know you're not stealing from the public. Don't think I think that yet.
See?
Heard it. What do you think about that? And you know, just getting something out in the public, it gives it doubt. So you can just mention anything. You know, I know you didn't rob that bank, and why would anybody rob that bank?
And I narcissist, a really controlling, grandiose narcissist is really good with this type of language pattern because they will start to put equations in or belief structure and belief structure after belief structure after belief structure. Now, they built a reality off of fake belief structure in the beginning, yet they still continue down that road. So if you wanted to I say hop into the spider web and then fight, each belief structure or walk away from it because that was the answer that I came up with after learning and understanding sleight of mouth better than I do today. So recent conversation was that somebody at a wedding venue, a venue owner, right? My point that I wanted to get across is that he wanted us to set up an extra speaker, which wasn't part of the deal. And then he calls me up and says, "Oh, yeah, I own an advertising agency and setting up a speaker isn't that big of a deal. And we do it all the time and blah, 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 blah." Yet, that's an extra service that someone needs to pay for. And at the same time, why would you expect more from us without paying more? And then it becomes unfair. So I could have gone in there and argued with it. Instead, I just walked away. I was like, well, moving forward next time, I don't even know if we got that far because that was the beginning of the conversation, right? And then it went on and on and on about all this other stuff. Now, remember, somebody does that, they're visual. So they're going to keep talking and keep talking and keep talking. And you got to sit there with a notepad and be like, well, he said this. Let me go back and rebuttal that. Well, he said this. Let me go back and rebuttal that. And it's like, do you really want to do all that? And are you going to have a win-win situation if you go back and just tear apart someone else's conversation? They're already like in this world, right? Like you're not going to be able to just hop in there and, win-win situation because obviously the other person doesn't want that. They want to stack up their chips so that you feel puny or something like that. Again, just because somebody says something doesn't mean it's true. It just means they said it. I mean, like,
That's a rabbit hole you could go down all day. You know, that's where it's sometimes hard in the media or anywhere to figure out is what they're saying is truth or not truth. Now, a lot of times truth is something true to somebody and it's not to somebody else. And, you know, after a while, you tell yourself something long enough, you'll believe it even if it's not true. Just because it's said doesn't mean it's true. So just understand we have to figure out where we're going with that with because
so
go ahead.
another thing, right? Like our narcissist could inject. They would say something like, "Oh, we all know you're selfish. You act that way sometimes, right?" So then you start going, "Well, am I?" And then you start to think of all the times you might have been, right? But just because they said something like that, they wanted to get an upper hand on you. And well, you could say, well, I could see how you feel that way. Yet at the same time, I didn't use and or but, right? Yet at the same time, I don't think everybody thinks that way. It's just you trying to impose something on me. Trying. It means you tried. If you try to open a door, it didn't
We're
open.
putting a frame on you, and then
Yeah, frame.
we gotta if we can take the frame away. And sometimes I don't know. I Sleight of mouth is good. Sometimes it's like you said earlier. It's like why fight that battle when you already know? Because one thing with a narcissist, understand they've been practicing this whatever however they got that way for years and years and years. They're pretty much a master, and they might even 100% believe what they're saying, even if it's not true. So that's their reality because a lot of them, the narcissists, believe it's okay to do whatever they do, no matter what they do, because they're better than you. So,
You should be happy to be even in my
oh my
graces.
God, yeah. So it's like, I'm lucky I'm spending this time with you. I could be talking to somebody else and giving them the knowledge that they need to know. And well, I mean, you've been beaten up by narcissists, and not everybody's a narcissist, and you got to understand that too. And some people just don't, they don't even realize what they're doing. You might say, well, he's trying to be a narcissist, but we all have a little narcissistic ability to say, I'm very important. What the good guys are probably saying is, yes, I'm important and you are too. When they add that statement, it's taken away from narcissism.
Well, I'm just doing all this for your best interest, because you should
Oh,
be so
that's,
happy to be around me.
I know. And I'm
Aren't you
just,
so glad I'm here to teach you all these things?
I totally am.
So you should do whatever I say.
You, there's
Should.
my pet peeves.
You should. Yeah, be careful about should, must,
Not to,
need to. Yeah.
because when you throw those words in, you really don't have a choice, and we all have choice. Um,
So
I like.
again,
Let's go over just a few, yeah, that I really like to use. Well, the hierarchy, isn't it more important? Isn't it more important to work together than to argue about this? How about,
hierarchy.
yeah, uh, consequence? Do you know if you're going to do that? You know what that's going to lead to, and when that leads to that, are you sure you want to deal with the consequences? I mean, it's just you're just going down the wrong road. And then the belief, if we can break a belief, then we can break a belief, we have another way to come out of it. And then you can say, your way's good and my way's good, but isn't there another outcome we could have? A metaphor, you could give an example of somebody else doing something.
Oh, oh, never mind. I was gonna say something, but I didn't want to put it on the YouTube channel. Hit me up personally. I said something to somebody. I don't know if this is called a metaphor or not, but I said we all repeat our lessons until we've learned them.
There we
So
go.
is that a maybe not a metaphor, but metaphors are mostly like stories.
Well, you could use any saying that's going to, well, you're doing it more of a
Oh, I could say, oh,
controller.
I used to try and get a cat to bark. I used to try and get a cat to bark. You can't get a cat to bark, can you?
Unless they're bilingual, I guess. Uh,
Um, so
uh,
apply to self. I do that a lot. Like, how am I supposed to do this? Right? Like, oh, I want you to come out for $500 less than what you do. Well, how am I supposed to do that? Like, how would I? How am I? Like, it's implied, right? If my overhead is this, then how am I supposed to do that and run a business?
oh, you sound like the guy, the negotiator. What's his name?
Oh, Chris Voss, yeah.
Yeah, you sound like Chris Voss there.
So yeah, that's apply to
The,
self.
the counter, I like the counter example one too. You give them basically,
Oh, we
you
know
say
all people
this.
can't grow a business during 2020. And I'm
Yeah,
like, well,
look at these other thousand people who did.
yeah,
So, uh,
chunk down. So if I said all these people couldn't, then you would be like, well, how about this one? Instead of all, it'd be like one.
or for like cars, when you chunk up or chunk down, a car. it's a vehicle, it's transportation, but then you call it a G6 convertible. It becomes you're chunking up.
More specific, yeah.
More
More
specific.
specific or less or more general.
Yeah,
Chunking up and chunking down.
see,
Another outcome, someone will be like, well, if you don't take this gig, then you're not going to make any money. Well, how do I just do some advertising and get more gigs? You know, like, right? Counter example, intent. So basically, a belief structure is cause belief effect, right? It rains, I'm going to get wet, which means I'm going to get a cold, right? So what's the intent? Well, I don't want to get a cold. Cause and like you can break it apart with the cause and effect. It rains, I'm going to get wet. Well, it doesn't mean you have to get wet if you have an umbrella, right? So you can start to pick apart anything. And then when you learn the meta model, wow, you could be a meta monster. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? What specifically do you mean by that? And then the more information that you're able to get from somebody, the
what
more you
would
can
that
put in.
do for you? What would that do for you?
Yeah, the more things you can put, we'll call this a framework or a machine. Basically, my mind, since I've practiced this so much, it it just runs fast. Like boom, 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 boom. I'll have six conversations and probably go over three or four of these things, and then from there I'll decide, what the best outcome that I want to, try out.
I think what you said earlier about sleight of mouth is kind of really a good thing to know. Is basically, this is a lot. This is a whole lot to think about right there. Yet, if you get a few of them, just work with them and you can find yourself getting it conscious, uncompetent. I mean, conscious, there you go, conscious competence. So if you work on them enough, then they'll just become natural to you. At first, they might not, So I would just say if you ever go through this model, I would just do a few at a time and find ones that's right for you because, uh, you know, doing this all day long, you'd be in not an argument, but a debate all night.
Yeah,
Interest.
it's like I have multiple personalities that are just constantly arguing with or using sleight of mouth against each other. Well, what if this happens? Well, what if this happens? What if this happens? Like
But this, what we're saying, I believe, is basically the more you learn about anything, it helps you a little bit. And it just, when you start learning things, pick some things that you know you can grasp onto, work with them till you got them, and then go on. And that's my belief, at least. And there you go.
yeah, you want me to challenge that belief?
Yeah.
Some
So,
people are like Rain Man, they can learn it all at once.
right. So, what's a takeaway for a good thing today is basically, you
Well,
know,
here's the takeaway, right? If you use your powers for good, then more good will come back to you. And when I was explaining this to one of the guys, one of my DJs, when I was, having some drinks over at the bar, and I was like, well, this is such a cool tool because it got me out of depression. And I was like, well, there's no way I can be depressed because I can sleight of mouth my way out of anything, like 16 different ways. And it's so cool. So, and then you could use these powers for personal gain. And, bad power, we'll say bad. What is bad? Bad is depending on how you look at things, right? So that's going to come back to you. That's going to come back to you. So just use your powers for good. That's the disclaimer.
there you go.
Good to me means win-win situations for everyone.
Right. Yeah, you'd have to figure out what is a good, break that down. What does that mean? And what does that mean? And what does it do for you? And again, the belief you could have the same belief you're doing right, and another person could believe you're doing wrong. And then you can use all those tools to say, this is the reasons why I have this. You could get counter examples. You could get, what if we do what the way you do? Here's your outcome. And would there be another outcome? Here's another way to look at this. Isn't it better to think about this? I know you believe this, and yet there's another,
I know we covered just a little bit of it, but that is a mountain.
yeah. And I think Robert Dilts has a book out on it, and also Doug O'Brien has a book out on it. And um, so Robert Dilts, first book, Doug O'Brien, breaks it down a little bit easier, and he's a good teacher of it. And
Yeah, you
they're
studied
all.
with him for how long?
Oh, I was with Doug for about 3 or 4 years doing different classes, just all his classes. Because during the COVID, we I spent like 10 or 12 hours a week with him every single week, and we had a mastermind and everything. But
And
Doug's
for those
great.
of you that don't know, Doug O'Brien was one of Tony Robbins' top teachers when he had a school. When I don't know, I guess he was with him
Oh,
for like a
he
10,
did
12 year
programs
run.
for him. Yeah,
Yeah.
not,
But well respected in the industry. One of the originals. Well, one of the top tier ones. Like, yeah, I think you were the first person to get a certification from him.
no, I think he's got a lot of
But
certifications.
you were the first
One
person.
of the groups after
Oh,
COVID, after COVID,
after COVID. Oh, okay, okay.
he was doing. He traveled the world doing, the smoke sensations and stuff, seminars and stuff, letting a lot of people stop drinking and smoking and stuff like that too. Yeah, I mean, he's an all arounder, good guy too. So I actually, just to say, he just wrote another book on um, uh,
What's this book about?
it's storytelling. It's something he breaks it down even easier how to do storytelling. He actually won the Moth, like I think last year. It, it's a place where you go and you tell a story and see if you can win with your story. And he won, but I'm not sure the book he's got out right now. Let me see if, but it, but he's got some, he does so good. I would say he's one, definitely upper tier, and there's a whole bundle of upper tier teachers out there. So we don't want to just, if we
Oh,
start
sure.
naming them all, we would never get to them. But so learn where you can. I think I've taken or studied from about 30 different people. I don't know how many exactly, but if you went to my website, you could see, actually Scott built one of my websites, tharpohypnosis.net. So if you want to see some of his, I haven't been there for a while, but also I got tharpohypnosis.com, but it
Let me
doesn't,
make sure it's still up.
yeah, it might not be up.
Yeah, it's still there. Yeah. If you just go to what is it, the About Me page, you can see all the teachers he's
Yeah,
had.
some of them. Yeah.
Certified in so many different things. I mean, Doug O'Brien said a lot of nice things about you. We have that on the page too.
Yeah, he's great. Uh, I
Yep.
went to I went to boy, my brain is toast here. The hypno thing in Vegas, and they thought I was Mike Mandel because I was wearing a bandana. And
Oh, Mike Mindell's another juggernaut in the hypnosis world.
yeah, they're great. Chris, and they got, I think, another guy now, Timothy. But they're always learning and always bringing new stuff in. Well, it's a constant learning. So
Yeah, never give up learning.
yeah, well, yeah, well, never give up, never surrender.
Keep on learning.
Keep on learning. Uh,
Well, I think that's about enough for today, guys. If you want to learn more about, we want to dig deeper into the whole sleight of mouth and find out what it can actually do for you. We have a whole training on the website, www.coachscottking.com. Again, if you're not in the Facebook group, make sure to go in there and ask questions, and we will see you next week. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
If I can hit the stop.